And you know what time it is? It's time for KP's Video News. KP's Video News, y'all. KP's Video News, y'all.
That's right, folks. It's time for KP Video News. And I'm here. I'm doing a story here today, and it's a story that this incident that happened yesterday in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, about Daunte Wright, a young 20-year-old black man that was shot and killed by a Minnesota police officer on Sunday, and sparked protests against the police, even as tensions were already running high due to the murder trial of police officers in the George Floyd case that happened last year. So George Floyd died in May of 2020, and it sparked waves of protests across the country, not just across the country, but all over the world, and the Black Lives Matter movement globally. And so right now they got the trial of Derek Chauvin going on, but there's also 3 other officers that are going to have to go on trial as well. I guess they're doing them all separately. But anyway, in the midst of all of this going on, here we have another young black man that has lost his life at the hands of police in the state of Minnesota. And it's a sad situation, man. Same thing keeps happening over and over and over again. And but they can't justify it, but they try to whitewash it and come up with a bunch of excuses. Of course, we've all heard the one bad apple excuse. We've heard that 1,000 times. So if you got 1,000 bad apples, that just seems like the whole barrel is rotten. However, on Sunday, protests again returned to the city after Mr. Wright was shot dead by police in Brooklyn Center, a northwestern suburb with a population of about 30,000 people. Police on Monday said that Mr. Wright was shot by an accidental discharge. And police, they stated that she pulled a gun instead of a taser. However, Brooklyn Center Police Chief Tim Gannon released the body cam video footage of the killing as the community needed to know what happened. They needed to see it. We needed to be transparent. Officials have not named the female officer involved, but have said that she is on administrative leave while the investigation is carried out. Brooklyn Center's mayor, Mike Elliott, has called for the officer to be fired, but the police chief says she will receive due process and be given a chance to make statements on the incident. Mr. Wright was pulled over for having expired tags on the car, and the shooting occurred as he struggled with officers as they tried to handcuff him outside of the vehicle. The body cam vehicle showed Mr. Wright got back into his car after the single shot was fired, and the officer was driving and by the officer, and he was driving away from the scene. Katie Wright, the young man's mother, said he had called her as he was being pulled over, and that she heard scuffling before the call ended. When she called back, she said Mr. Wright's girlfriend told her that Daunte had been shot by the police. So, here we go, man. It's like it's the same old crap over and over again. You got this kid. This is a kid, man. This is not somebody, that's like, been experienced anything in life. This is a 20-year-old man. He's not even 21 yet. This is a 20-year-old kid. The 20-year-old survived by his son, who was aged less than 2. Daunte Wright Jr., some social media photographs and videos showed his brother, Damick Wright, holding Daunte Jr. up in the air while at the scene of the protest on Sunday. During a live stream of the protest on Sunday, Mr. Wright's sister could be heard stating that, you know, he was just silly and he just makes everybody happy. He said, they took my brother away from me. I'm so hurt. They really just took him. I can't believe it. I'm still feeling like I'm going to go home and see him, and it really hurts. In a statement, Brooklyn Center Police said the officers had stopped Mr. Wright shortly before 2 p.m. Sunday, which was yesterday, and after determining the driver had an outstanding warrant, they tried to arrest him. The statement said the driver re-entered the vehicle and drove away, at which point an officer fired at the vehicle, striking the driver. Now, let me stop right here. This is a sidebar. At first, they said it was a struggle and he got shot before he got into the car. Now, this statement said that the driver re-entered the vehicle and drove away, and at which point an officer fired at the vehicle, striking the driver. He drove several blocks before crashing into another vehicle, police said. A resident who lives near the crash scene described how police officers pulled the man out of the car and performed CPR while another passenger who got out of the car was covered in blood. And so the lieutenant governor of Minnesota tweeted, I'm angry and heartbroken in how unrelenting this trauma is for our community. My heart is with Daunte Wright's family, but especially his mother who spoke to her son for the last time today. It's too much. The trauma of yet another black man dying at the hands of law enforcement, which weighs heavy on our state. During Sunday's protest, some waved Black Lives Matter signs and stood peacefully while a handful confronted the officers. Police have said Brooklyn Center officers use body-worn cameras as standard, and the department said it has asked the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension to investigate the case. So I'm going to read the next story here, and it's just like, you know, the circumstances kind of changed there, because the police officer who shot Daunte Wright accidentally pulled a gun instead of a taser. Now, I just read you the story that just stated that the police officer shot at the vehicle. Now, why would you shoot at a vehicle with a taser? It makes absolutely no sense. Now they're trying to make up your mind. It's either going to be one or the other. Either you pull out a taser and you shot him by accident, or you pull out a gun and you shot at the car and killed it. So the officer who fatally shot Daunte appeared to have inadvertently pulled out a gun instead of a taser, the police said. So, Police Chief Tim Gannon that's what they told the reporters today. And Wright was shot and killed during a traffic stop just before 2 p.m. I stated all that. And so it said the body cam video released by the police shows Wright trying to get back into his car in an encounter with officers. The shooting, which sparked protests and unrest across the Twin Cities Sunday night, has inflamed tensions in a community already on edge amid the trial of Derek Chauvin, and the former police officer charged with the murder of George Floyd's death. Activists criticized the department for using excessive force, including tear gas and flashbang grenades against the protesters. Gannon defended his department's decision, said that he needed to disperse the crowd after an officer was hit by a brick. The officer who shot Wright was not named, has been placed on administrative leave, and the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension is conducting an independent investigation. Wow. So Brooklyn Center Mayor Mike Elliott stated that he supports, that's the mayor, firing of the officer. Elliott also stated that he had spoken with President Biden, who was expected to address the shooting in remarks on Monday. So, you know, it's like, you know, you got two stories. You got conflicting stories. They're saying that it was an accidental discharge, They were trying to pull out a handgun. The minute to fire a taser, not a handgun. And that's what the chief of police of Brooklyn Center stated. And then in a statement said, "I'll tase you, I'll tase you." The officers heard shouting on the body cam footage, and that was released at the news conference. She draws a weapon, and the man breaks free from police outside his car and gets back behind the wheel. After firing a single shot from the handgun, the car speeds away, and the officer is saying, "I shot him." Daunte Wright, 20, died Sunday in the metropolitan area that was already on edge because of the trial of the first four police officers charged in George Floyd's death. And Gannon stated in the news conference that the officer made a mistake and that he released the body cam footage less than 24 hours after the shooting. The footage showed 3 officers around the stopped car, which authorities said was pulled over because it had expired registration tags. When another officer attempts to handcuff Wright, a second officer tells Wright he's being arrested on a warrant, and the struggle begins, followed by the shooting. Then the car travels several blocks before striking another vehicle. And so they're making their excuses, and the female passenger sustained 9 life-threatening injuries during the crash. And authorities said Katie Wright said that the passenger was her son's girlfriend. Gannon would not name the officer, but described her as very senior, and I guess that means she had some seniority. He would not say whether she would be fired following an investigation. I think we can watch the video and ascertain whether she will be returning. Court records show Wright was being sought after failing to appear for a court case, and so that means they have already encountered this person before. They said, "We're going to do everything to ensure that justice is done and our community is made whole." That's what the mayor stated. And speaking before the unrest, Wright's mother, Katie Wright, urged protesters to stay peaceful and focus on the loss of her son. And as everybody's saying, and Joe Biden was briefed on the shooting. The White House has been in touch with the governor, mayor, and local law enforcement. The White House press secretary stated that we're incredibly saddened to hear about the loss of life at the hands of law enforcement in Minnesota yesterday. The National Guard troops and law enforcement officers continue to guard the front of the police department on Monday morning. Police were erecting a concrete barrier as Minnesota State Patrol officers joined the line in front of the precinct. Several people and reporters watched from across the street as traffic returned to normal on the street where protesters were met with tear gas last night. One man yelled at officers using a megaphone as others flew Black Lives Matter flags. About 20 businesses were, they claim, had suffered some damage last night. And more National Guard members and state law enforcement personnel were to be deployed around the Twin Cities and in Brooklyn Center, in addition to teams already in place for Chauvin's trial at the courthouse in Minneapolis. So they're gearing up. They're gearing up for something. They're gearing up for something. So just switching and going over to a whole nother city. Going over to a whole nother city here. I'm switching over to California and LAPD. So this story was back from March 29th, 2021 in Los Angeles. It says a man was fatally shot by LAPD officers near downtown freeway on-ramp, and Lieutenant Raul Jovel, LAPD spokesperson, with preliminary information from the scene, indicated that Rampart Division officers had attempted to stop the man on foot in the area of West 7th and South Bixel Streets when the man allegedly ran from them. About a block away on 8th and Bixel Streets, near on-ramp on the 110 freeway, Jarbo alleged the man produced a firearm and was shot by the police officers. He said the man was transported to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead. Jovel said he did not know why the officers had first attempted to stop the man. He did not identify the man and the officers who were involved. Jovel said the claim a firearm was recovered from the incident. The incident is under investigation by the Department's Force Investigation Division as a standard in police shootings, and officials were working to identify and review any body worn or surveillance video from the scene. The case will be reviewed by LAPD Chief Michael Moore and the Department's Inspector General and the Civilian Police Commission. The shooting added to a startling string of LAPD shootings in the last 2 weeks, which activists from Black Lives Matter Los Angeles and other groups have cited in calling for more to be fired. With Monday's shooting, there will have been 7 LAPD shootings since March 16th, and 3 men killed and 3 wounded. A member of LAPD's SWAT team also was shot during one of the incidents, sustaining injuries to his chest and the face, which he was expected to survive. Police have alleged in each of the shootings, the person they opened fire on was carrying a weapon, but they have not yet released footage from any of the incidents. Moore acknowledged the cluster of shootings was striking, but says each of the shootings would be judged on its own merit. In a shooting outside of Olympic Police Station last week, police alleged a man who was trying to enter the station's locked doors was carrying a gun. In another, police said that a gunman in a home exchanged gunfire with officers, and they alleged officers shot another man and he was trying to attack someone in a home with knives. Shot and killed a man who had thrown a hammer at officers and threatened them with another item resembling an ice axe, and shot a man who allegedly bailed from a vehicle after a traffic collision carrying a gun. They also said an off-duty lieutenant fired on a vehicle after allegedly witnessing a passenger in the car shooting a man on the street. Prior to the recent string of shootings, there had been 4 police shootings in the 2021. Last year, there were 27 LAPD shootings in total, compared with 26 in 2019, which marks a 30-year low. Police have said they are reviewing the spate of shootings very, very carefully. So that's Los Angeles. That's 2 cities. Tale of 2 cities. So let me try to end this on this thing. I know that's all negativity. I'm gonna try to end this thing on this article here on a positive note. We have a switching reels. This is in Georgia. We have a 21-year-old builds a charter school for young black boys in Georgia. That's right. That's what I'm talking about. King Randall, a 21-year-old who founded a youth organization called the X for Boys, is opening up a new school in Albany, Georgia, called the New Life Preparatory School for Boys, that aims to help more young black boys in the community reach their full potential. 2 years ago, Randall was just 19 years old when he started the X for Boys, which provides a safe space for teenage boys 11 to 17. The organization has since hosted different workshops on skills such as welding, automotive repair, construction, as well as cooking. They also organize field trips and a book club, which significantly improved the ability of some of the children who didn't even know how to read on an 86% reading comprehension rate. So, giving them a space where they can, they're around a lot of other young men and around other men trying to mold you and train you. I've had kids come find me at my house and come knock and ask to join the X for Boys. And I've had kids message me on Instagram, gang members, you name it. Randall stated he initially funded the organization's operations solely out of his pocket, but he eventually started raising money to fund more programs. Ever since he started the organization, he really wanted to establish a school with the support of other people in the community and even nationwide. he has making the dream come to a reality. That's right. New Life Preparatory School for Boys, which will be located at the former Isabella School, will focus on teaching young men traditional academics, trade skills, as well as firearms training and the science of family and manhood. So I'm like, hey man, this is all right, man. I'm telling you, man, it's wow. 21-year-old kid, man, starting school. That's amazing. That's amazing. And I mean, I can't. King Randall. Now they didn't really have a. I wish they would have had like a GoFundMe page or something on here, but they really didn't. But maybe I might be able to find one. The New Life Preparatory School for Boys. And I'm like, wow, that's all right, man. That is all right. Albany, Georgia. King Randall, doing it right, doing it the right way.
And you know what time it is? It's time for KP's Video News.
That's right, folks. KP's Video News.
KP's Video News, y'all.